Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. As the COS spoke to his officers in Peshawar today, he said, "We shall continue with our endeavours of peace and stability, and there will be no room for spoilers of the process. The armed forces will not tolerate any further attempt of violating the sanctity and security of its installations or vandalism, and resolve to bring to justice all the planners, abettors, instigators and executors of vandalism on the black day of 9th May. Of course, we saw the Prime Minister also, as he visited the Jinnah House today, the aftermath of the kind of vandalism, the kind of destruction to property that we saw in the last few days remains unprecedented. The way that the government now aims to tackle this, of course, clearly, as far as the COS is concerned, the army, of course, the Prime Minister, overall, there is agreement on finding out the perpetrators of the kind of disgraceful conduct that has been seen in the last 2-3 days. We'll be talking about the ramifications of the kind of assaults that have been seen in the last 2-3 days as far as the overall political situation is concerned. We also saw today, as far as the former Prime Minister is concerned, an attempt to perhaps step back from what has been done as a political party, as the head of a political party. But then, of course, we also saw statements that came from within the High Court yesterday, as far as the former Prime Minister is concerned, an expectation that seemed to indicate of there being perhaps more conduct like this if he was retained further, statements like that. Which way are things headed? Of course, the government remains stoic, and it remains it emphasizes the need at this time for stability overall and for ensuring peace at all costs. We'll be talking about all of that today. I have with me Usama Malik, who's a legal expert. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Naveed Aman, who's a political analyst. Thank you for joining us. And we have with us Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa, who is a senior analyst. Thank you for being with us. We have with us Qaiser Ahmad Sheikh from the PMLN. Thank you for joining us. Usama, we, additionally, of course, apart from, of course, what we've seen, the destruction in the last couple of days, the way that protesters protested, the destruction to property, the way, injury, overall, all of that, there's also the issue, I want to move on to the legal side of things, the case of the elections, which is likely to be heard on May 15th. How do you see this now overall? What is your opinion on what is likely to happen? Because we've seen, as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, the government is saying that they're taking a certain, they're what can one say, leaning towards a certain way. But as far as the legality of the issue is concerned, what do you expect?
Well, it is a very interesting case. It's a review case before a 3-member bench, I believe. Obviously, the original case that was heard by a lot more judges than that, who have not been included in the review bench, which is very interesting. Usually, review bench contains the same judges, generally speaking. So this in itself makes it something of a colorable exercise, I suppose, especially if you look at it from the government's view. They have already said that they consider this to be a judgment that is something that they do not completely agree with, with the legality of it, simply because nobody is completely sure as to what the judgment itself was.
Whether it's 3-2 or whether it's 2-3?
Whether it is 4-3.
4-3.
Or, I mean, it's a very interesting judgment, because Mansoor Ali Shah has clearly said that it's a 4-3 judgment, because it's very similar to the Panama judgment.
Of course, but isn't it true that also, as far as the government is concerned, they're saying that elections are primarily the responsibility of the Election Commission, not the government. They've of course, as government, they have certain responsibility, and they've been asked to do certain things. Pursuant to that, the Election Commission is supposed to act. So primarily, the Election Commission will be responsible for satisfying the election, the Supreme Court. How do you see it?
Well, actually, yes, the Election Commission is the constitutional body that is there for holding the elections. The Constitution of Pakistan states that. However, the executive is supposed to provide all and facilitate the election commission in all matters relating to any elections. Having said that, it is also the election commission that is supposed to provide the dates for holding elections, and in this case the Supreme Court has ruled that the President can provide that date. And in fact, in the end, it's the Supreme Court that itself gave the date for 14th May in its judgment of 4th of April. And that is what the Election Commission is challenging under the Section 58 of the Elections Act 1997. They're saying that the Election Commission has a right to change the schedule at any time after it is issued, and it has to give its obviously reasons in writing, which it has provided.
But there is a deadline in the field at this time, isn't that true?
That is true.
Right. What are the options? I want to come back and talk a little bit about what are the legal options as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. When they look at this whole situation where the Parliament is saying that they don't agree with giving those requisite funds. That also is unprecedented, isn't that true?
That is also true, and it is Parliament that has to authorize those funds for any exercise of similar nature.
Right. Let me come back to you on that. Naveed sir, we saw the former Prime Minister in his, we heard what he said today also. We heard what he said outside the the High Court yesterday also, within the premises of the High Court also. Where do you think is the contradiction? Because on the one hand, and then we also saw the videos that were uploaded before he was to be presented in court. He also again said today that he had an inkling that he would perhaps be arrested. So what is it in your opinion when we look at the way things happened, the way they were executed overall? Now of course we see that there is a conscious stepping away from, as far as the former Prime Minister is concerned, from what happened. But there's a contradiction there, no?
Huma, in fact, Imran Khan has become Altaf Hussain of Punjab. We have experienced and we have observed Altaf Hussain in Sindh and in Karachi, and what he did with Karachi is a part of history now. But the fate he met, Altaf Hussain met his fate because of his doing and because of his statements. Same is being done by Imran Khan in Punjab. Punjab was a very, very cool and calm province, but now since Imran Khan has joined the politics in Pakistan, he has made Punjab a battlefield, not a political battlefield, but an actual battlefield is being seen during the last couple of days. It is unbearable. It is not protest. It is terrorism.
Yet he's aiming to draw a distinction with the MQM, even in the speech that he made today. Is it now? Does he feel that he's gone too far? Is it what do you think is behind this now?
He has gone too far. Yes, it is. Of course, he has gone too far. But he takes U-turns of his statements. First he does, and then he takes U-turn. So it makes no difference what he says today and what he has done the last day. The most important thing is this: on the orders, on the provocation of Imran Khan himself and his companions, the miscreants, the terrorists, they attacked the government installations, whether it be the Peshawar, Radio Pakistan Peshawar, whether it be the Corps Commander House Lahore or the GHQ. If it has been done by any terrorist like BLA or TTP or any group, what would have been the reaction of the government or the armed forces? I think that the reaction would have been on zero tolerance. Now here again, government and the armed forces will have to show zero tolerance against the perpetrators, the terrorists.
Right. Let me go to Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa. General Sahab, this is unprecedented in a lot of ways. The way that certainly we saw the Corps Commander House, the way that it was ransacked, the way that the destruction to property, certainly all of that. In your experience, now what do you expect? Of course, we've seen the COS make a statement, we've seen the government, there doesn't seem to be any compromise on them coming down on whoever is responsible. We are, even looking at images at this time of people that are being identified even as we speak. But as far as, the turn, this kind of a violent turn to politics is concerned, what is your overall estimation of the kind of precedent this is setting, where we are going as a whole?
Let me tackle it, I think, in two parts. First is what happened on 9th May, particularly when the crowd went berserk and attacked the army installations. I talk about Corps Commander's house first. It's somebody's house. A family was living there. Regardless of who is there, would anybody, including Khan Sahab, he was so very upset when his house was, police went to his house and did what they did. Would he, in anybody else's place, if this was to have happened to his house, would he have tolerated that? What would be his reaction? Number two, this is not an ordinary house. This is an ordinary man living there. Forget about the Corps Commander. This is a symbol of Pakistan Army, a symbol of Pakistan. Why I say that is, this is a house gifted to the armed forces by none other than the father of the nation. It is known as that, and is revered as that, respected as that. Do you know that its facade has not been changed? Minor changes within the building itself, notwithstanding. Why? Because there is a certain degree of respect for this house because of the person, Baba Qaid Azam. When you attack this house, a house which symbolizes the residence of the senior-most military leader in the town, what are you trying to tell the people? Who are the people who are doing it? What is it that they've achieved at the end of the day? We heard Pakistan. Pakistan has been hurt extremely badly. Pakistan Army has been hurt extremely badly. This is your army as much as mine army. I mean, it's our kids who are there. And some of those who were part of this crowd maybe have their relatives, brothers, sisters, and all of them in uniform. How would they be feeling? This is the army which has been in the battlefield for the last 2.5 decades, 3 decades. They're fighting the most difficult war of all times. No other army in the world has fought such a war for so long, not only survived, but is coming on top with the help of the people, with their support, and of course, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala's support. Are you trying to tell this army that we don't respect you for whatever you have done for us? Would any of these protesters, and anybody else who talks about against the army, I would rather like to give him the pay that a soldier gets there or an officer gets there. I would like him to go and face the battle, the kind of battle that they're fighting. What have we done to ourselves? It is, we hurt Pakistan. That is one aspect. The second aspect is why it happened. That again, why we must punish these people who have done this. We must punish those who planned it. We must punish those who instigated it. They must be brought to book and must be given exemplary punishment. But there must be introspection by the government itself. Why it happened. Unless you remove that reason why it happened, this thing which has happened, Allah kare
I'll come back to you on the fact that, of course, it's very important as to why it happened, at who's exhorting, at whose behest, and where do we go from here when we look at the kind of violence that has now steeped into our politics, perhaps is unprecedented. I'll come back to you. I'm going to go to Qaiser Ahmad Sheikh from the PMLN. Ji, Qaiser Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Qaiser Saab, the PMLN has, of course, condemned what has happened. The government is saying that they are going to bring to justice, whoever has ransacked, whoever has created the kind of havoc that we saw. In terms of the overall situation at this time, as far as Punjab is concerned, as far as the caretaker setup, the regime is concerned, as in terms of the case that is likely to be heard on Monday. What is the overall situation as far as politics is concerned now? Certainly it is the aftermath now that has to be looked at by the government, and of course the perpetrators be brought to justice remains at the top of that agenda.
Mahrukh, the very pertinent question you put to me. Presently, the situation is out of control, I should say. Two different groups are taking their own position, and things are not normal here. You see, already mentioned by participants here, you see, this is the situation unprecedented. Attacks on the civilian and military on important sites like like Qaiser Ahmad, residents like these installations are never been attacked. This is unprecedented, and you see particularly when I study about the democracies of various countries in US, in UK or India, because our PTI leader Khan Sahib have mostly been giving examples of UK because he has been living there for a long time. So I never saw like this any opposition parties attack their own establishment or their own army installation. There are agitation, but never such agitation in those countries. At least I don't know about it. Even I have mentioned on a number of occasions that the developed countries I have seen, for example, 40 years ago, I was in Japan, and in Ginza, Tokyo, there was agitation by the opposition party. So when they were crossing the road, there was a zebra crossing and red line was there. So all agitation stopped at that time, and when again the red line was on, and then they crossed that road, zebra crossing. Otherwise, all traffic continued to flow. Now that was the agitation of the developed societies. Now what we are doing, our Khan Sahib is giving them lesson that such Western countries, what is the precedence there. But what happened on 9th of May, I think it can never be tolerated. It is not an agitation, it is not a protest by any political party.
Is it an attempt for the former Prime Minister to classify himself as an untouchable against any investigation that may ensue that he may expect? Is it that, in your opinion?
You see, the former Prime Minister is never cooperating anything. He even in the court when in the honorable justice, he asked him to condemn those agitations and all those happenings, but he never, I think, I have not learned from him that he uttered any word against those people who are involved in riots. So this is extreme end. You see, one example was given by MQM, what they did in Sindh. I live in Karachi and I know about what happened during MQM period. You see, when their leader crossed the line and he mentioned against Pakistan some remarks, unethical remarks, then that line was crossed. And then again, the people are not supporting him now in Karachi or in Hyderabad. Similar situation has occurred in Punjab. I am very much involved in the politics of Punjab. I have contested 6 elections and trying to contest 7th on this time. But I know the people of Punjab love their armed forces and their defense, because those who have been martyred, mostly they are from Punjab. And they also know that they are sacrificing their lives, and they are giving all kind of sacrifices. But if we have to destroy their installations, their whatever their photos were, their pictures were destroyed also there. So this is not acceptable, I tell you frankly.
Right, let me come back to you, Qaiser. I'll come back to you. Ji, Usama, the legality of this, of course, the former Prime Minister, when he spoke today, mentioned the Al-Qaeda Trust. the case that, you know, is responsible for so much that happened in the last few days. There are of course a lot of other cases against him also. As far as this case is concerned, the legality of it in terms of how the money came, how it was distributed, the fact that, you know, the trustees, all of it. Overall, how do you look at it as a, you know, the first step, of course, for the government remained the investigation?
Well, the case certainly seems to have some merit in it, because there is considerable evidence that we see that the money did come from the NCA in the UK, and it was under a settlement. It was considered to be proceeds from illegal proceeds that were returned to the government of Pakistan. So obviously those had to be transferred to the exchequer of the Pakistani government, and instead the cabinet transferred it to a private individual, or transferred it into an account on behalf of that private individual, and that is not what it was meant to be for. So this is obviously a loss to the exchequer. But the problem remains that at this point investigating that seems to be very difficult when the courts themselves are not allowing the alleged culprit to be arrested and to be investigated, and therein lies the problem. The High Court had ruled that the arrest was legal, and then for the Supreme Court to literally call up the former Prime Minister and grant him bail of sorts, in the sense that sending it back to the High Court for further decision, that caused a lot of concern.
Usama, how like in the legal sense, of course we're talking about politically speaking, the fact that the way, you know, there's a lot of criticism on the way that the former Prime Minister was asked to come back, the manner in which he was asked, the way he was welcomed, all of those things. But legally speaking, how unprecedented is it in a bail matter of this kind? There are also assertions as far as the ISA is concerned that the way that it was taken up, there are certain irregularities there. How irregular would you term it if you look at the way, you know, the normal course of things?
Well, the normal course, yes, it is very, very unprecedented, to the point that I cannot right now recall any such precedent before this, where such a thing happened, that the court itself just suddenly seized the matter and brought it up and literally invited the main culprit or alleged culprit over and granted it this kind of leeway, I think.
But isn't it true that this is of course now a precedent that you cannot arrest people from within court premises, right?
Well,
after the decision of the Supreme Court, there seems little doubt.
It seems to be the case, and I hope this will be applied in the case for everyone. And if that is the case, then yes, it should be welcomed. Then, but I don't know if it will be applied in every case.
But doesn't it automatically become precedent?
Well, in this case, it seems that it was only granted because there was so much arson on the streets. It seems the court did it under pressure of sorts. Can everybody else?
But will they say that? Will the judgment say that? Will it not be part of the record, the way that it happened?
I doubt it. I don't think the court will mention that, but it seems to be that the court was in some way pressurized by all of the happenings on the roads, and I think not everybody can bring out mobs when they are arrested.
There is some talk of Haris Steel case. There is some talk of the Musa Gilani case in this. Of course, once the detailed judgment comes, there will be they will probably allude to whatever precedents there are in this manner. But let me come back to, I want to talk a little bit more about the legality of it. It's certainly really interesting for what's an unprecedented, like you said. Naveed sir, politically speaking, there is now a sit-in that is scheduled to happen on Monday. The PDM is doing it. Certainly there is no bar on any sit-in, peaceful sit-in, which is what the PDM is saying. It's not difficult for any political party to demonstrate street power in this country. Certainly, I think there are other parties. And PDM is, if I'm not wrong, an amalgam of what, 11, 12 parties?
13 parties.
13 parties. If they chose to bring out their supporters, how difficult do you think it would be to perhaps clog the whole country?
Definitely, it will be very difficult to hold and to
prevent them.
To prevent all this, because if one party can do a lot. 13 parties definitely can do more than that. Definitely PDM has also the right to protest, to go for the protest wherever they want to, no matter it is in front of the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And definitely they will go for a peaceful protest to show the difference. But it doesn't mean that PTI understand the weakness of the PDM or the government. The dissents from the government, the dissents from PDM or dissents from the armed forces doesn't mean that PTI or Imran Khan is stronger than all these. Now, Imran Khan has learned this lesson, that Imran Khan thinks that all these elements, whether it be the government or the forces or the PDM, he can suppress them. He can dictate them and he can drive them. All these powers, all these institutions, for the sake of the country and the nation, have tolerated Imran Khan up to the maximum extent. But he has gone.
We are a country, we are a third world country that has a multitude of problems. There is a lot of frustration in our society due to a multitude of factors, you know. For a leader to exhort people, you know, now he's trying to step away from it as a party. He's saying, to quote him, ye hamara rasta nahi hai. But the question is that when it happened, and the way that it happened, when he started for his hearing, and the way that those, you know, the videos that were uploaded, what were they? They were asking his people to come out and protest peacefully. They were asking his people not to become a human shield.
He has never asked his people or the masses of Pakistan to come out for the protest peacefully. He rather provoked the people. And he asked them to come and go for the violences. And he even, when he was being released from the court in the premises of the High Court of Pakistan, the other day, he again
I don't know if we have that clip or not, where in the High Court he has to have said that, you know, this is invariably what will happen.
This is very important thing. It should not be ignored by the courts as well. That he said that if I am arrested again, the government of Pakistan or the Pakistan itself will face the same sort of reaction. What does he mean? It's not a threat, directly threat to the country or the nation or the armed forces. It is a threat. And the institutions like the Supreme Court and the High Courts should take action against all this. It's a noticeable thing.
But do you not think, let me go to Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa. Ji, General Sahab, isn't this a case of institutions perhaps bowing, certain institutions bowing to that kind of pressure, instead of standing resolutely against it?
Answering your first question, there is another aspect to it that I wanted to highlight. It's what happened on 9th. There is a responsibility of leadership. Leadership actually, to me, it means the taking the responsibility of your own actions and actions of your under command and your subordinates. And guiding them towards the right way of doing whatever they're supposed to be doing. If it's a political protest, it must remain political protest. It must not ever become violent. And the second is that if it has happened, we saw that what happened on 9th. Whatever is to be done to those culprits must be done. But does the leadership realize that they have to take the responsibility for it? There's a time to step up to the plate and say, okay, fine, it happened, and why it happened, and who is responsible for it. Regardless, it is my responsibility, and I must accept the wrong that has been done by his people or somebody else. Part of that.
General Sahab, if you know, the former Prime Minister chooses to accept the responsibility for what happened, then that would indicate that he would also choose to surrender before the court. It would indicate that he would, you know, instead of using people as human shields, or, you know, he talks about the action in Zaman Park, all of those things, he would choose to step up and say that I choose to be arrested peacefully. He would choose to address his people and say that don't, that none of this should happen. There should be no damage to property. There should be no damage to any kind of, personnel, all of that. There is, whether whatever political affiliations one may have, it's not very long ago, then when we saw the attack as far as Maryam Nawaz is concerned on her car, and the fact that, you know, the way that she stepped up and she said, and I think that that is a matter of record, that she told her people to stay behind, and she walked with 2 people, I think there were 3 people with her, into court. And there were times that there was repeated, you know, the courts were very hard on them, the courts were very hard on her, scolding her for being 5 minutes late, the fact that, you know, we saw all of that happen, and that's not very long ago. The way that the political play perhaps has been done in this case is unprecedented, but those facts are not very long ago. Isn't that true?
Other facts also. I'm not alluding to the political aspect of it. Right now, what I was referring to was that it's not a surrender. Whether it is Imran Khan who says so, or it is Maryam, or anybody else, any other leader. According to me, actually, if I was there, I probably would have stepped up and said, this has happened, and not to I'm sorry, we apologize to the nation, we apologize to Pakistan Army for what has happened. This was never the intent.
Ownership. But General Sahib, in this case you don't have somebody who is saying that I take responsibility. Instead, you have somebody sitting in court after he has been given unprecedented relief and saying and blaming, you know, the head of an institution. Isn't that what happened?
Frankly, I mean, I don't know whether it's unprecedented relief or not, because there are other examples as well. I'm deliberately trying to focus on the main issues. Issue is that has happened, somebody did it, the people who did that,
Isn't
whatever
it true?
else might say.
General Sahib, isn't it true? Isn't it, I know, we can all focus, you know, on what you're saying, and that's certainly, I mean, I have no objection to doing that, but isn't it a matter of record that that very evening your former Prime Minister sat and blamed the head of an institution for what had happened?
Former Prime Ministers, not yours or mine. Frankly, it did say that. And that is where I'm trying to highlight. Second issue that arises automatically here is that are you going after the senior military leadership because that is what suits your political objective, or military because that suits your objective? Like me and Washi did that in Gujranwala. Was that right? What I'm trying to highlight is that Pakistan Army actually draws its strength not from the weapon that it holds. It draws its strength because the people of Pakistan stand with it 24/7. One.
Right.
The second strength of Pakistan Army is one of the most homogeneous forces in the world. There's no other army like this in the world. Let me point that out to you. Why I'm saying the most homogeneous force is because the top leadership and the junior most person in that force, they are linked number of different ways. And there's only this army that one of the brothers could be at the highest level and the others could be at the junior most level. And they'll still be meeting like two brothers. And what is critical here is that if the rank and file, their confidence and unflinching belief in the fact that their military leadership gives them an order, they has to be obeyed regardless, whether it costs them their life or whatever else, whatever. That is how the army has to work. And this confidence between the rank and file and the senior military leadership gets weakened because for whatever reason, you're weakening the army. So is that the objective? I think that is where things must be, we must concentrate to put that right. It can't be done. It is not done thing.
Very true.
Very true. And we must step back.
Right, fair enough. Let me come back to you. Ji, Qaiser Sahib, you heard what Deputy General Ghulam Mustafa Sahib is saying. He's saying that we must step back from it, but for that there is certain ownership needed. As he said, we don't have that kind of ownership. We have a kind of denial here, you know, an inability to own what happened and saying that this is not his people, this is not his party, this is not he wanted. This is what the former Prime Minister has said when he spoke today, instead of taking any kind of ownership of what happened. In terms of the politics of what is scheduled, the protest tomorrow, what do you expect on Monday?
You see, the former Prime Minister did not agree to condemn, and he did not accept his responsibility on all those rights. Whatever attacks were made on installation, I think for tomorrow you see our PDM and People Party together, all together. They have convened their workers, and if things prevail like that, I think it's not in the best interest of the country. It will be an open confrontation. You see, when what we have witnessed yesterday.
Peaceful protest, right? This is a peaceful assembly.
We have convened a session of National Assembly. I'm not very clear whether National Assembly, what we are going to discuss in that and to debate in National Assembly. But you see, I know that member National Assembly are, you see, is not agreeing on the way the courts made their judgments. We feel that such is unprecedented, as you discussed earlier, and the things will be debated in the National Assembly. All members of the National Assembly, they are directly elected people, and they have their own mandate, and they have their own ideas. I think our country, we should have, of course, political differences are there. We accept that they have a right to make their political statement or political movements. But such thing that what happened the day before yesterday or on the 9th of May, it is not tolerable. It cannot be accepted. And we are convening our own party meetings, and there will be a threadbare debate, and the things will be decided. You see, if confrontation like this goes on, and this was initiated by PTI, they even did not agree in such incidents what happened, and what it harmed our as General Mustafa himself agreed that it damaged the armed forces.
I think that there's going to be, this confrontation, the fact that there is, certainly we saw the kind of confrontation that we saw in the last couple of days. Are you going to perhaps, have more talks? That is the alternative. What are you going to do as far as the PTI is concerned?
I feel I have talked on in your programs also, and on a number of programs. I've always talked that there is only one option, that is talks and negotiation and discussion between the political parties. You see, it is not the prerogative of the courts or establishment to intervene into the political affairs. We have to find solution ourselves. In Pakistan history, whenever there was the confrontation like that, the things, unprecedented things happened. And what happened to our country was dismembered, and then again there was an imposition of martial law, and you see our political leaders are hanged. There is an example of like that. A popular political leader was judicial murder happened in that, and things are moving, going towards that direction. You see, it is still an opportunity. The political leaders should have more and more talks. We are miserably failing this democracy. We are directly elected people, members of the National Assembly from the people, and if we cannot find solution, I think the establishment or judiciary cannot find any option.
Right, fair enough. Yes, unfortunately, I'm running out of time. Usama, your quick comments as far as the legal process at this time, the way that judiciary is concerned, even the High Court decision, the Supreme Court decision, the way that, and the fact that its potential ramifications on, as far as lawyers are generally concerned, as far as bars overall are concerned. How do you look at that?
Well, I would think that the Supreme Court should stop interfering in matters of the High Court. They've done it in the matter of the election case. The cases were seized by the respective High Courts, and then the Supreme Court took it up and created this whole mess. That was completely unnecessary. It's the same with this case. The NAB Court had ruled on this matter. The High Court had ruled that the arrest was legal. I don't think the Supreme Court should have taken it up. So I think the proper hierarchy of courts should be respected by the Supreme Court. It should allow the process to continue. It should respect the provincial high courts. They are there for a reason. Their decisions should be respected, and then if need be, they can be appealed to the Supreme Court. When the Supreme Court itself takes notice of such matters, it removes that right to appeal by taking it up as an original jurisdiction of that court. So I think the Supreme Court should just step back a little and allow the high courts and the lower courts to apply the law.
Fair enough. Naveed sahab, your quick comments. Unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Mahrukh, first of all, if Imran Khan now says that he is ready for the talks, I think he should not be, nobody should go for the talks with him, because what he has done within the last couple of days should be brought to the Court of Justice. First, it should be punished and set the precedent, so that the next any politician should not go for any such attempt. If he is left aside and welcomed for the talks, every politician will repeat the same attitude and then push and suppress the institutions for the talks. He is not ready for the talks with the politicians. He is ready for the talks with the armed forces. The armed forces has nothing to do with it. The other day, President Arif Alvi, he tried to talk to the armed forces chief. What the armed forces chief has done is to do with it. He should have talked with the Prime Minister of Pakistan for the to discuss the situation. But he better thought that he should ask the Chief of the Army Staff to intervene. Why? Because Imran Khan, he believes that he is habitual of this attitude in the past. So he believes that armed forces chief can do all this. But armed forces have categorically said that they have nothing to do with the political matters, and the political matters should be solved with the political leaders.
Right, fair enough. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Usama Malik sahab. Thank you for joining us, Naveed Aman Khan. Thank you for being with us, Qaiser Ahmad Sheikh. Thank you for joining us, Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa. Thank you for your time. Overall, of course, what happened, the events of the last couple of days remain unprecedented. The violence exhibited, the kind of out and out hooliganism that we saw is right there for everybody to see. Whoever is responsible for this, of course, there's an across-the-board agreement, should be held responsible. And let's see, the government, of course, is identifying those responsible. Order and law and order cannot be compromised on under any circumstance, and that has to be the yardstick by which any civilized society exists. Let's see what happens in the next couple of days. Of course, there's a scheduled sit-in as far as the PDM is concerned on Monday, and where things go from there as far as politics is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.